Hello, and welcome to another edition of the ArenaCraft podcast, a show focused exclusively on Magic the Gathering Arena. My name is Arjuna, the often downtrodden, the often misunderstood, the often misattributed. And joining us today, Covert Go Blue, the Grand Master of Flowers, finest Twitter content user, expert tech savviest, Covert Go Blue. How are you doing today?
I'm confused by all my titles. I don't know what you're talking about with literally any of those at all, but explaining the joke's pointless, so we can just move right on.
We'll just move along with that. Yeah. What's cooking this week for you in the arena, CGB?
We're gonna get right into it, I guess, huh?
Let's do it, man. I mean, okay. All right. We'll give him a little overview, right? I was getting ahead of myself there. I was excited. Today, we are going to talk mostly about the spoilers for INNISTRAD Midnight Hunt. We've had a big drop of them, and there's a lot of stuff to talk about, and there's a lot of hintings about what the new format's going to be like. The set's already looking fairly powerful. So, we're going to focus on that. Okay, but first, Covert Go Blue, what has it been like in the arena for you?
This was a really long week, man. I feel like I almost had like a rock bottom moment, and I try to keep it positive on this show. I always do, because at the end of the day, I love playing Magic, and I love Arena because I'm still old. And I remember when getting an opponent to play Magic on a platform that I enjoyed playing on was actually really hard to do. So I still really appreciate Arena. I really do. This update, man, this Jumpstart Historic Horizons update is the worst update of all time. Just the worst.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's the worst. Okay, let's add it up. Let's add it up. We were told some kind of a back-end thingy that they need to change. It's going to make the arena more stable for years to come and just give them more oomph or something. I don't know, right? So they have to like split the season into 2 seasons because for some reason it resets ranks. And then here's what's up. It gets delayed 2 weeks. And because they tied it to a set release for God knows why. Like, that doesn't, I mean, why would you mess with a set release? Why would you tie them together? I know that it's expensive to roll out updates and a big deal, but it feels to me like you could have put these on separate updates, but maybe I know nothing, right? Maybe it's Perpetual required it.
It's like the MPL thing happening this weekend, right?
I got it. I'm going to enjoy getting to that, but like we're back on August 10th here. We were supposed to have Jumpstart Historic Horizons. It got delayed 2 weeks. So for some, like, obviously that wasn't planned. We were supposed to be enjoying a new historic format with new cards for 2 weeks. And instead we had not even new products to talk about. Like we spent a podcast on Eldraine cards. and by the way, people love that podcast. I loved making that podcast. I'm not sad, but that just tells you that they actually had a week of nothing for most people. You know, no new product announcements and nothing to play while we waited for this update to get done. Then it comes out on Tuesday, right? And the downtime was supposed to be what, 2 hours? Maybe 4? It was like 9 hours.
Yeah, it was like all day.
As a man of the people, a person whose job it is to make content for everybody else, I said I would be live during downtime to entertain people. I'm not really good at this long time streaming thing. I'm good at like 2 to 4 hours. For 9 hours, like I was playing Magic Duels, all the different Magic Duels games on Steam. I had 1,000 people watching. That is probably like peak Cgb right there, playing Magic Duels for like 1,000 people. And then I was commentating on some Pro Tour matches, watching some old Pro Tour reruns, but my God, man. But then we get the update. Book of Exalted Deeds is unbanned.
Oh, dude, I wasn't anticipating how cringe and tilting it would be until it actually came up for me, right? I was like, oh yeah, I mean, that sounds kind of annoying. I probably wouldn't like that either. And then the first time I ran into it in the 2022 queue, I wanted to grab my opponent and just smack him across the face.
Well said.
I mean, the disrespect.
I don't think that's as bad as the other thing, though. Brainstorm was unsuspended for about 24 hours. Look, what were we supposed to be excited about? Historic, right?
Yeah.
That the new like Jumpstart Horizons hadn't quite come out yet. That didn't come out till Thursday. At least it didn't come out the same day. But they literally brought back Brainstorm from the dead for like 24 hours before they sent it back into the ether. So that was really funny to watch right after the update launched. But I think far worse, like what did this update do? Everything seems just weird. Have you had the latter experience of queuing into the same person 2 times, 3 times, 4 times, again and again and again? That's what's happening right now.
Yeah, I managed to miss that particular one. I think part of it was that it was looking like a show and I was just kind of avoiding it.
Dude, Ash Lizzle entered a historic event after the new cards did come out that Thursday. I believe she queued in the same Jeskai control player 5 out of 6 matches.
Yeah. And then in the next one she did, it was like 4 out of 6 or something. It was just ridiculous.
Insane. So something is totally destroyed in the matchmaking where now you will play the same people over and over and over and over. I played the same a guy who's also a YouTuber, Watts. I played against him 4 times in a row.
Whoa,
like and this isn't because nobody's playing. For some reason there's always somebody who's like, well, there's probably nobody playing. That's not the case.
It's a new update.
Everyone
wants to play.
Tons of people are playing. Not only that, there's probably been much lower points in Arena with less people playing, and this never happened. Like on Christmas freaking Day at 2 a.m, I can get a variety of opponents in Mythic.
Yeah, I mean, usually what happens is if there are less people playing, it just takes longer to queue. Right? Yeah, that's what happens,
and that's not happening anymore.
Yeah,
there's also something screwed up in the ranking system, dude. If you're watching yourself in Mythic, like top 1,000, like a win moves you like 20 points now, and a loss does too. Like you just move up and down so slowly, like unbelievably slowly.
Wait, so do you think that they've just totally retooled their ranking as well?
They've done something to matchmaking, ranking, and now we gotta speculate. The shuffler. The shuffler. I'm getting one-landers again. I haven't seen one-landers in years.
Yeah, man. Maybe they're like ramping down on the algorithm. That would be really interesting.
I don't know. But I also, like, as soon as it happened, like I've been queuing into people in Mythic with the decks that I would never queue against before. You know what I mean? Like all the basic lands, the mono 2-color basic landers. It's so weird.
That's so interesting, actually, because I was just playing today, earlier in the standard 2022 queue, and I was playing all kinds of matchups that I just never would have expected. And I mean, it was sweet. Don't get me wrong. I was really enjoying it, but I assumed it was just because I was playing some new Golgari deck. That's what I assumed. But maybe it's just that the matchmaking is really different. If that is the case, then so far anyway, I want to applaud it, because like the range of people that I've been playing has been much wider, and it's just felt like a different format.
What queue are you in?
Just the ranked standard 2022.
Ranked standard 2022 in like platinum?
Yeah, like high platinum at the moment.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I want to be where you are, because are you not having the queuing into the same person like 4 or 5 times in a row? Because that's what I'm getting.
Not today.
Oh, I do it every day has been like that. And I've got to tell you, that's where the rock bottom starts to come in.
I can imagine.
As a content creator, all right, when you're trying to make a video, and I know I've just become accustomed to what people kind of want and what they expect, which is a variety of matchups and try to make a narrative, and you try to make it's good against this and it's bad against that. When you're just queuing in the same person over and over, and especially if they're a bad matchup for you, it is draining, like soul-suckingly draining. I can you only imagine? I made a video today of regular standard because standard 2022 was busted yesterday when I had to record. Like that queue just didn't work.
It wasn't even working.
Yeah, you couldn't join a match.
So my theory at the time was that the book was still in there and they were like embarrassed, so they just literally didn't want it to be running.
Maybe.
Like I think the queue was actually broken and they had actually disabled it. Like literally like checked some checkbox in the server being like, do not let people play this queue.
I haven't tried running book. I know 2022 was working today. I haven't tried book. I got a message it's still not banned.
Yeah, I was just gonna say though that today I actually did play against it, so that so that debunks that theory. I guess there was no even good or even semi-plausible reason why it wasn't working.
But, dude, so I played standard, regular standard. Imagine, I played 6 matches. 5 of them were against the companion Lurrus.
Oh God.
Is there a Lurrus deck that isn't annoying as hell in standard? My first opponent, they only tried to cast 1 spell the entire game. Can you guess what it was?
Into the story?
Zenith Flare.
Oh, Zenith Flare. Wow. It's been a while. It's been a while for me.
I queued into that person 3 games in a row.
Oh, God.
And they never put a spell on the stack that wasn't Zenith Flare.
Oh, God.
Does that sound like fun magic, Arjuna?
This is, I mean, this is the magic I've like already left behind, right? This is like, that for me hearing about this is like my ex drunk texting me. You know what I mean?
It is. I thought we moved on, you know? Yep. I really thought we moved on. This update is, I hope it gets fixed up soon. I haven't played since today's update, which was like a pretty big rollout as well. Or no, yesterday. Sorry. Today is...
they did one today
Friday.
Though as well.
They did one today too. I bet they did.
Yeah, my client did another update. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, because they had to delay. You were alluding to this before. They had to delay the biggest like Magic tournament of the year to date, the MPL and the Rivals Gauntlets, because they weren't sure they'd be able to run them.
I mean, because what a facepalm that is, dude. What a face. I mean, people are online to go to Worlds. You know what I mean? Like this is MPL qualification stuff. Like this is big time.
They told people
it
not to expect professional Magic to be a thing in the future. So people took time off of, you know, those jobs they went and got to play this event. And then they were told, now we've moved it. Different days. Have fun. It's so amateur hour, man.
Yeah, dude.
It's not cool.
Everything from top to bottom, right? The unbanned cards, the downtime, the replanning, it's like just about everything that you can imagine going wrong has gone wrong, right? Some people can't even log in.
Yeah, I've heard that too. I saw some content creators had wiped accounts.
Oh, right. Just all of their cards gone and stuff.
Yeah, I saw that on Twitter, like screenshots of just having absolutely nothing. I saw screenshots of people who like had been in Mythic and got their ranks completely reset all the way to nothing, like to the bottom. I like things like that. It's like, what's going on? How does this happen? And I mean, I hope that it actually is rock bottom, because I hope we have places to go up from here, because I actually think the cards that we're going to talk about are sweet. That, you know, that's the bright side, the silver lining. But I just couldn't dive into the cast very far before letting you know, like, it has been a week, man. I streamed on Thursday, again during downtime. I spent 2 hours reacting to old MTG commercials on YouTube. Which
was sweet content, by the way.
Thank you.
I watched a fair amount of that, and that was a good time, man.
Thank you. That CGB also, at rock bottom, just trying to make some people have fun.
Also, if you go back and watch the VODs on Twitch, you can actually see CGB as a younger lad with frosted tips getting thrown through a coffee table by a large goblin.
I guess you can say that's a thing that you saw.
That's tips, what I saw,
man.
That's all I'm gonna say.
When I have time, I'm gonna go talk to my stylist about some frosty tips.
Come on. I know you've had them in the past. Look at that hair. Are you trying to tell me that hair has never had frosted tips in it before?
Actually, never has.
Really?
Yeah, that's true.
That blows my mind.
It's a fact.
I mean, bona fide child of the 90s. That blows my mind.
Yeah. What can I say? I was edgy, man. I didn't want to be like those boy band flakes, you know. Didn't want to go
You
there.
weren't like another Justin Timberlake.
Yeah,
like
I didn't want to go on dates or have girls interested in me. Come on. Just kidding. Maybe I should have. Yeah, if I could do teenage CGB again, I'd frost those tips, baby.
Hell yeah, dude. And you'd be A of all playing more Magic, getting thrown through more coffee tables, and B of all dating more. So there you go.
Good stuff.
I love it. Yeah, well, I know I actually feel kind of fortunate that it was just like a busy week IRL for me, and I wasn't trying to make a buttload of Magic content because I feel like I'm just missed a majority of that pain, although I did witness it heavily throughout the week watching other people's streams. So, and man, it's so brutal. Like when you open up Twitch and you look in your little left pane to see all the people you're following, and you see like 10 of your favorite MTG content creators, and they're all streaming like Storybook Brawl.
Oh my God, yeah.
Genshin and just like whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's embarrassing.
Yeah, that is a thing also that's been going on. There's just been a few diehards like fighting it out for content, and we've all been miserable. It's kind of, made us closer together, I think. Brought us closer together.
And the thing that surprises me is that we're still surprised, right? We're still surprised when everything goes haywire.
I like to think I'm getting good at this. Like when they said that the downtime was going to be 4 hours on Tuesday, I decided I was going to stream that day, but I also recorded 3 videos in case the downtime was longer than expected and I couldn't record for 2 days. So I
brutal.
That was smart.
Yep.
That paid off. People were worried. They're like, how are you going to make a video? I'm like, I already did. I'm way ahead of you. I recorded 3 videos and did a 9-hour stream on my birthday. That's how I got ahead of this. But it wasn't enough, dude. It wasn't enough because the queues were just so messed up. It was so hard to make videos. Oh my gosh,
dude. Oh my gosh, brutal. Well, one thing that I did manage to witness you doing was making some pretty sweet videos about Historic. Do you want to tell us a little bit about what you've been up to in Historic?
Yeah, Historic is a nice, fair format when your Dragon's Rage Channeler deck queues up against Burn. And Historic like rope-a-doped me, dude. I made this Dragon Rage Channeler video. Well, let's go back to, first of all, the Vesperlark Davriel's Withering combo.
Yep.
That's not a joke. That's real.
No, dude.
That
is
like
what, turn 3 combo?
That is
sometimes?
a turn. It can be turn 2 if you have a mana accelerant and the right dual lands.
Wow.
Yeah, the very first game I played for that video was a draw because just did it. Good news. Arena somehow, of all the crazy things they did, which I still don't understand why they would print the Vesperlark at all, but they did make it so draws happen fast. If the same action repeats for, I think it's like 2 minutes, you get a draw.
Okay.
And I swear it was like 10 minutes back in the Polyraptor days. So
brutal.
2 minutes is kind of faster. It's a lot faster for a draw. So if you're going to draw the game, at least it doesn't take forever. And the opponent, can run to the bathroom, come back, and there's the draw, and we're on to our next game. Still shouldn't exist, but it was better than I expected. And speaking of better than I expected, I just splinter twinned so many freaking people with that deck. It's just so easy to pull that combo off. And that was a
surprise of no one. I mean,
the Vesperlark, Blood Artist, Davriel's thing, it works and it wins. And you can put it in a variety of shells. My shell, I don't think was even close to the best. It was just the day one, here's some cards that go into it. I've played against some decks since then that I think are way better. Yawgmoth is a card that goes in that deck really well because it's...
Oh, no way.
Oh, dude, it's like a fair card, but it just takes over the game on its own because if you're sacrificing all these bodies and moving things, from graveyard to battlefield and so on with Blood Artist and Cruel Celebrant, you just drain them out and you draw a bunch of cards. Yeah. Totally fair version still kills them. So that's a real deck. Like that's a terrifying deck. But Dragon's Rage Channeler, is it tempo stuff, actually had me for a minute. It made me think it was a good format because I played some close games and they were exciting. And then I ran into the Tibbles Trickery deck for the first time.
Oh God!
And this isn't your daddy's Trickery. Now they play Throes of Chaos, which is a 4 mana card. So it doesn't look like it would be an improvement over the previous Trickery deck that could go off on turn 2. But what you get by cutting all the zeros is you no longer are a 2-card combo. You're a 1-card combo. You don't have to mulligan until you have Trickery plus a 0. You just mulligan until you have Throes of Chaos. Throes of Chaos is all you need if your cheaper cards are only Trickery, because Throes of Chaos hits the stack, cascades into Trickery. The Trickery can target Throes of Chaos because it's still on the stack because the cascade was part of the card. And then away you go. You get to roll the dice. The only other thing you could hit that would mess it up is Trickery.
Is another Trickery.
Yeah, which is very low. You know, you're not going to hit the Stonecoil Serpent anymore. You're not going to hit the zeros. That's a big deal, right? Because now you're just far more likely to do something broken. And God, that is annoying.
Well, and then correct me if I'm wrong, but can't you just like Mizzix's Mastery and do it all over again?
You can. I added Mizzix's Mastery to my version, which I hadn't seen, because that also gives you a second kind of angle where you can just Mizzix's Mastery Magma Opus on turn 3 if you didn't keep a Throes hand, and that's usually good enough to get you to Throes of Chaos because it just puts the opponent so far on the back burner. Most of the time, though, you don't need to Mizzix's Mastery Throes of Chaos because it has Retrace. It gets countered by the Trickery, and it goes to the graveyard. And with Retrace, all you have to do is discard a land to cast it from the graveyard.
Oh, that's right. So you just get to cast it again.
Not only that, but when you retrace it, it usually exiles when the Retrace resolves. Does it resolve if it gets countered by Trickery? No. It goes right back to the graveyard, and you can do it again. No. So even if you whiff with the Trickery, you just cast it again the next turn.
And I mean, let's just step aside from the combo. This card is such a fascinating card, right? Because it's 3 in a red sorcery, and it has 2 words on it. One of them's Cascade, the other one's Retrace. That's it.
Yeah. It actually does nothing other than those.
It's such an interesting concept for a card, right? And I think that notwithstanding the Tibbles Trickery, it's a pretty sweet puzzle to try to solve. I mean, of course, with the Trickery, it's like you said, it's a 1-card combo and it's a total groaner, you know?
Oh, I think you get 24 hours to be like, oh. Right? Because it didn't occur to me that I was countering my own retraced Throes of Chaos, so it was going back to the graveyard, so I could just do it again the next turn and the next turn if I wanted. So, but once you get past that, though, you're just your deck is just degenerate. It's just Ulamog spamming. It's a monster. Very hard to beat because the traditional I'll memory lapse it. Okay, I do it next turn. Well, I counter it. Well, I'll cast it from the graveyard. It just keeps going relentlessly. So I found my place in Historic after throwing a tantrum on one of my streams where I said I'm never playing the format again and it's the worst thing to ever exist. And I stand by it, but I found my place in the format. I'm still going to play best of 1 because I don't enjoy playing best of 3, but I'm just going to fight cheese with cheese. I found my cards. My decks just have main deck like a Grafdigger's Cage, a Rest in Peace, 2 to 3 Test of Talents. Let's go.
Okay, you're a hater. That's what you are, man.
That's what I am.
Straight up hater.
I'm just shutting down those people who think they're smart by playing these stupid, do nothing, uninteractive combos, man. I'm just taking them out. I'm a trained assassin on a mission now. I know my place.
This is CGB's version of Unmoored Ego. Right?
Yeah.
This is what CGB does. When other people would Unmoored Ego people, this is what Covert Goodly does.
It's way better than Unmoored. Don't get me started on that. I know what you're trying to do. You're trying to start the Unmoored Ego talk again because people love going after me for that take. But no, it's like Test of Talents is a good card. It is a narrow card, but it is a card that solves a very serious problem, and it does hit things that are on the stack and can take out a key part of people's decks. And when the format gets too centered around one thing, that's really powerful. And it's happening in 2022. If we had time for 2022 meta, I'm actually putting Test of Talents in more things because Alrund's Epiphany just get out. Because so many decks come down to that now, and have 4 of them. But or
even just like hitting a Lolth, right? Like you got to feel awful if your opponent just tags your Lolth. Or how about your Kaya, right? You're playing Blood Money and your opponent.
Are you
hits
messing
Kaya.
with me? Are you trolling right now? You are, aren't you? You're trolling. Yeah.
Blood on the snow?
Yeah, I cast Test of Talents on Planeswalkers all the time because I'm a cheater. No, Blood on the
that's
Snow.
right. You can't.
Blood on the
You can't do it.
Oh, you were
That's right.
supposed to stick with the troll. I was trying to save you, man. I was trying to save you from the comments. I really was trying to bail you out. Okay.
I'm too honest. You can tell I don't cast that card very often.
Blood on the Snow is a good hit though too. Like that's an important hit as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like killing 4 Planeswalkers.
Well, and I mean, so when I think about Historic, I think it's actually a really good match because what deck in Historic is not playing some kind of hard-hitting instants or sorceries, right?
Oh, there's a lot of Collected Company decks that get really salty when you hit that card. Like a lot of scoops to that.
Yeah, even Thought Seers or Memory Lapse, you got to feel pretty good about just knocking out your opponent's memory lapses.
Yep, the Gearhulk decks without Magma Opus are kind of a sad sort of themselves. Reanimator without its reanimation jutsu is pretty sad. Like there's a lot you can do with Tested Talents that gets the job done in Historic. So I've been running more and more of that. I have like a Bant Blink deck that's almost all creatures. It even had Collected Company at one point, but it still has like 3 Tested Talents. Let's go. Because you can't just fight fair. There is no world where you'll only play fair matchups, especially in best of one. So you've got to have a chance. And it's a whole different way of analyzing opening hands. Well, if I got the right matchup, I just got them. But like you take it. You're like, okay, I'll take the shot here. I might draw Test of Talents now. This game is worth playing for another 2 or 3 turns when I figure out what they're on because I do have an I win button in my deck. I might draw my Grafdigger's Cage. I might draw my Test of Talents. By the way, Grafdigger's Cage against the Vesperlark combo is nice. It's very nice.
Heck yeah, dude. Heck yeah. I mean, Grafdigger's Cage just still proving to be a very relevant card in Historic. And it's pretty much only the Izzet decks that are going to make you... Actually, I guess Colligan's Command hits it too. It's kind of brutal that there are like 2 popular commands in Historic that both just easily take that out.
Yeah, that's why I just run 1, but I also have Rest in Peace, and I also have Test of Talents, which go after that deck as well. So I've got ways, but that's my thing. Like I'm running like Blue-White Control, and I'm starting... I actually have a ton of decks now. I've kind of gotten into Historic once I kind of embraced the role of I'm going to cheese the cheese. And now I've got like Bant Blink, Jeskai, Flash, and Blue-White Control that I'm playing a lot. And they all have like 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Rest in Peace, 3 Test of Talents. Let's go.
Covert Go Blue, you want only one thing, and it's disgusting.
It's awesome. Somebody has to show these nerds that their cute deck that isn't going to work every time. Somebody has to make the game about more than going first, man. If it's got to be me, that's what's going to happen.
Love it. Well, Ninja Gaidening the best of 1 Historic queue. And so that's awesome, man. Thanks for the update. Yeah, I've not really been playing that format. I am excited about it, but I don't know, man. Sometimes I like playing fresh formats, and sometimes I just want to step back and let all the nonsense dissipate, right?
Yeah.
I just want to, I want to let the kaijus murder each other before I come on in there with my whatever, tier 2 or 3 deck I feel like playing on that given day. So that's been kind of my approach, but I've definitely been enjoying watching people just absolutely body slamming each other with Dragon's Rage Channeler. I mean, that card has not disappointed.
Yeah, that card's for real. Unholy Heat is really good, but Dragon's Rage Channeler is house. Very fun too. I can't stress. Like I actually had fun with a red card that attacks a lot.
Dude, I mean, just the experience of like having a Dragon's Rage Channeler and then casting Expressive Iteration, it just feels so good, right?
You see so many cards. You get the Surveil, and then you look at your top 3, and you pick a little this, and you do a little that. It's like stacking your deck. It's awesome.
It's cheating.
Yeah, it's 90s Magic. Cheating. We're just playing 90s Magic again, finally, where we just all stacked our deck, had our friends slipping us cards, and wait, not everybody did this? You're shaking your head. I'm just kidding. Favorite. That's what people did to me, though, and I've never forgotten it.
That's the whole Mike Long thing, right? That's come up again in recent times. But yeah, I just think it's sweet how you can play a deck in an arena format where like you max out at 3 lands and you're just freaking surveilling away the rest of your lands, right? You don't need them. It's just 1-drops. It's just 1 and 2-drops. That's all you need. Anyway, yeah, so I'll be interested to see how that all goes. That deck's going to get at least 1 significant boost from the upcoming Innistrad set as well. Might even get a couple. So I don't know. Why don't we get into that now? Because it's fresh, it's hot, it's here,
it's
good.
It's
day, it's good. Night.
Oh,
and it's good.
Night. You were trying to do a thing there. My bad.
Dude, I mean, night and day, right? It's gonna be a huge difference in standard. So CGB, I've had a very busy last couple of days, and it's been a little bit hard to keep up on some of these spoilers. And I know that some of the spoilers were actually spoiled right before this podcast when you were out and about. So some of these cards are literally, we're gonna see them for the first time on the podcast, which I think is really fun.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm going to jump ahead since you talked about day and night. Let's talk about that mechanic because I think that's a doozy. Yeah. So I want to jump straight to Arlen, the Pax Hope. All right.
Okay.
So I'm going to read that one if you want to pull it up. Arlen, the Pax Hope is a 2 and a red-green, so 4 total mana for a legendary planeswalker. This is a mythic with enters the battlefield with 4 loyalty. And I'm going to read some pluses ability. Then I'm going to read about Daybound, which is static ability. And there's an other side to this card. So just hold on for the ride. I'm going to try to present it all. So the +1 is until your next turn, you may cast creature spells as though they had flash. And each creature you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter. Ooh, that sounds fun. -3, create 2 2/2 green wolf creature tokens.
That one got my attention.
I was howling at the moon because my Cool Stuff Inc. token is a 2/2 wolf. That for this set.
Dude, so Arlen is actually making CGBs.
Arlen is actually making CGB tokens. Bottle Brush. I'm going to send you the token art. I need that to go up on screen here. Anyway, plug. This card has Daybound and another side to it. And that Daybound says if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. And then the backside has Nightbound, and Nightbound says if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day the next turn. You got all that?
Okay, so here's what I'm wondering. I assume that there's no day or night happening until a Daybound or a Nightbound card hits the battlefield, correct?
That is correct. I also have 2 more loyalty abilities I forgot to read.
Okay, sure.
All right. So on the night side, Arlen the Moon's Fury has a +2, which is to add red and green to your mana pool. All right. And a 0 that says until end of turn, Arlen the Moon's Fury becomes a 5/5 werewolf creature with trample, indestructible, and haste.
All right. Got a little Gideon going on there.
All right. Did you play the first Innistrad set? Or the most recent one with the transforms.
Shadows.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you did.
Yes, I did.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Did you play the one before that with Huntmaster of the Fowls?
No.
Okay. So we know about like how werewolves have worked in the past. So the first big thing that you read is you're like, oh, they keyworded it. Daybound and Nightbound are what the werewolves did before. It's just now we have a keyword. Correct?
I mean, that's what I would assume.
Incorrect. This is different functionality in very subtle ways. First of all,
come on, man. Why do they have to do this to us?
Dude, I know it's a mind, like I'm already having trouble thinking about how the cards are going to interact because I'm used to how the other werewolves worked. But
that's like, what I'm saying. This is punishing us for our mastery, right?
It is, but the other way had a few things about it that were bad. And this has, I think, actually does fix it if you want to get into the weeds after we talk about the card. All right. Yeah. So here's what's up. Once a card enters the battlefield and like makes it day or night, that's just like it's like a static thing that is part of the game. And it's represented by like a token, kind of like the dungeons, where like if you're playing paper, there's like what I assume is a double-sided day-night token where you just flip it, but it's now part of the game for the rest of the game. And Arena will track that for you. But but think about it. When Arlen would enter the battlefield under the old rule, it would always enter as Arlen, correct?
Yes, that's right.
Under this rule, it just is night if something else changed it to night. Therefore, you can play it on the Moon's Fury side and have that 0 to be a 5/5 indestructible haste the turn you play it. Or plus it for 2 mana that turn.
So you put it on the stack on its front side, but if it is night, it just automatically resolves on its backside. Okay. That's really interesting.
It is.
And that is actually really cool, because I feel like with the previous werewolves, you always had to go through some kind of process to get them there.
Exactly.
And so that's pretty sweet.
Yeah. And on top of that, a few little details. If a player doesn't, the way that the other ones worked was if a player cast no spells transform, right? Now it's only you. If you cast no spells, your opponent can't blow up your attempt to flip your werewolf with a flash creature or an instant, like they could in the past.
Okay, so it's during your turn.
Yeah, you get some, what would you call it, agency there. Like you are making the decision that I'm going to turn it today, or I'm going to turn it tonight. And that's kind of cool, because while there was kind of a sub game there, it did make the cards and what cards were good in the format, it just created a lot of awkward, like real awkward. Like I go to my end step, I transform my wolf, and then the other person's like, whoa. I put an instant on the stack, and it's like, no, whose turn is it? I don't know. And it really awkward stuff, right? So the other thing about it is it says Nightbound, if a player casts at least 2 spells during their own turn, it becomes day the next turn. So you can't like cast 2 instants on your opponent's turn to transform your wolf on the next turn. Also, the way that transforms worked before was a trigger. From what I can tell, there's no trigger here. The transformation just happens.
It just happens. Okay. That's really interesting. So let's just break it down really clearly for the crafties, especially the crafties who weren't here for the previous Innistrad sets.
We can, but they probably already tuned out. They probably left if they were confused.
I know, right? They're already
go
asleep.
For it.
They're already asleep at their desks. Okay, so with Arlen, for example, let's say no day-night shenaniganing has yet happened in the game. You play Arlen. Arlen's going to come down face up with this Daybound ability. And so the Daybound says if a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. So let's say, you play Arlen face up, good to go. Maybe you do your minus, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay.
Wolves.
You pass to your opponent. They don't manage to remove Arlen. They don't change the status of the day or the night. They pass it back to you. Now on your turn, you have the choice. If you decide that you would like to flip Arlen, you can just go ahead and plus, and Arlen is designed to do this, right? So you go ahead and you plus Arlen. It lets you play your creatures with flash.
Yeah.
You pass the turn.
Yeah.
And because you cast no spells during your turn, boom, it globally becomes night for the whole game. Okay. If your opponent did manage to somehow get something down that cared about that, then it would transform to the night side. Now on your opponent's turn, if they decide that they don't like your Arlen being flipped, they can go ahead and make sure that they cast 2 spells on their turn, which then turns it into day. And that will be on your following turn. So that's basically how it works.
Yeah. And, you can flash things in and do stuff on their turn because you plus your Arlen, but that doesn't change the fact that they can change it back to day if they have the 2 spells to play. They have the agency now to make that move. Yep.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I think that's a good sum up. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool mechanic. I'm still not that into it. I just feel like there's so much you have to track with this, right? There's so much planning you have to do. There's so many
hard.
Yeah, dude. There's so many accidental feels bads. It gets really hard in limited. I don't know. There's a lot of things about this mechanic that I didn't particularly like the first time around. And even though they've worked on it, I'm just still a little over it, It can also sometimes have this effect of punishing you, right? Like So if you're not able, like, let's say that your opponent's werewolves flip and it's night, right? And you really like would love to be able to flip it back to day, but you just don't actually have the spells, right? Then you can just end up feeling really punished, and it's a real feels bad.
If the card is, it's okay if the card does good things for you on both sides, right?
Sure.
But if you really needed one side or the other, your opponent kind of had a way to counter you or interact with you in an odd way, right? A way that they wouldn't normally have.
So it does create these openings for clever Magic players to make good plays and feel clever. And that's, of course, something that people like in Magic. But it's also just going to, I mean, mark my words, there will be a lot of salt over this. And there will be a lot of like, this game was looking great. And then I misplayed around the day-night thing. And now I'm just totally dead on board and I feel awful.
I'm really curious to see what it looks like with the card in your hand. Because if it's night on the board, and you're looking at Arlen in your hand, and you think you're playing Arlen, and you end up with a Arlen Moon's Fury, but say that you made the choice of Arlen because you needed 2 blockers from the wolf tokens, but now instead you have a 5/5 haste indestructible that's not going to help you play defense. Like, that would feel really bad, right? So that's a tough one. Like, I kind of wonder if it's night out, will it like flip in your hand so that you're looking at the version that you'd actually play? I don't know. That's kind of weird, right? Because like you said, on the stack, it's going to be Arlen. But I don't know. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I think that this is I think it's the right change. You don't remember Huntmaster of the Fells mirrors? Because I believe it was the person who's the active player got screwed by Huntmaster of the Fells, because if both players had one, the person who was on the play, I think their Huntmaster got killed by the other one, and nothing. It was really awkward trigger stacking for Boomer Magic. So I think that's a good reason to move away from like the upkeep trigger version. And it was at a point where people would like have this powerful, awesome card, Huntmaster of the Fells, in their deck, but if they were on the play, they'd like sideboard them out, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. It sounds like a nightmare. I'm glad I didn't have to live through that myself.
Yeah, it is. But what do we think of, I mean, unless you have any other day-night, like kind of, or night-bound, day-bound quorums that we need to talk about or questions, we could also move into, is this card good?
I mean, it looks solid to me, man. Like, I mean, just that, -3 make 2 2/2s. Like, I mean, we've already seen how powerful that is on Lolth. This is 1 mana cheaper. The wolves aren't necessarily as good as those spiders in a lot of spots, but it's still just a lot of value, right?
Yeah, and unlike Lolth or Grandmaster of Flowers, Arlen comes in with 4 loyalties, so the plus actually gets it out of dice to Goldspan range, which is kind of a big deal in the current format. The option to have a 5/5 trample indestructible haste on turn 4 is compelling, but so is kind of the Burning Tree Emissary thing, where +2 loyalty, up to 6 loyalty, and you ramp? That's really good.
Yeah, you play like a Dragon's Fire or just a blocker, something like that.
Yeah, you kill their thing. Plus, by the way, you cast 2 spells on your turn if you do that. Think about that. So you play Arlen of Moon's Fury on the night side, and then you +2 and you cast a Dragon's Fire on their creature. It means that you cast 2 spells, so you flip Arlen. And so the next turn you have 6 loyalty, and you can -3 it to make 2 wolves, and -3 it again the next turn if you want to.
Yeah, man. I mean, there's going to be a lot of intricate play patterns like that. There's going to be a lot of options. There's also going to be, just like you said, there's going to be turns when you were hoping that it would be either day or night so that you could play the side that you wanted, and it might change your strategy accordingly.
Yeah.
So, yeah, going to be a lot of head scratching with this card.
Yeah. I also want to say everything I've said that's like rules related is me reading cards and talking to Twitch chat. I'm not a judge. So people are going to, as always, like they always do in our preview season, they're going to correct me on something in comments. It happens.
Yep. Yes, indeed. And, we're all going to learn how wrong we were. One of the things I want to note about this card is that it's been a while since we've had a really commonly played card in a format which lets you flash in, card types that don't usually have flash. We all got tired of it with Teferi, and I'm just getting the sense that this might be a player in the next standard, and I'm getting the sense that you might get real tired of forgetting to play around your opponent's flash creatures.
What,
So.
you don't want to get elite spellbound in the draw step? You're not into
Oh
it?
God,
You don't want
dude.
that? You're not
Don't
looking
give them
forward to it?
ideas,
Okay.
CGB.
Okay, fine.
Oh, don't give them any ideas. It makes me shudder.
It should.
I mean, think about this. Like, these aren't going to be in the same standard together, but how punishing would it be to be during your opponent's turn and they try to kill your creature and you flash in your like protector, right? I mean, there's so many different things that you're going to be able to do with this. And I don't know. I'm already terrified.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I think this card is pretty darn good. I'm really excited about being one of the, Planeswalkers, one of the marquee cards. This card is cool.
It is very cool, and it does look quite powerful. All right. So we're gonna just start off. We just kind of picked a place to start, and we're gonna read through this and let you crafties know what we think. So one of the very first cards that caught CGB's and my eye when we were starting to do this is a reprint. And this card sees heavy play in formats like Modern. It probably even goes back to Legacy for all I know. Pithing Needle. This is 1 mana artifact at rare. As Pithing Needle enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Activated abilities of sources with the chosen name can't be activated unless they're mana abilities.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like it's a bit of a narrower Sorcerer's Spyglass, but costs only 1 mana. I mean, you can't argue with the price, right?
There's a lot of good things about this card. Well, let's just try going back and forth on things you could name. Do you have one ready?
So, I mean, Fabled Passage came to my mind, although...
You troll! You are a troll in your heart for that
But
one.
I'm trying to remember, where did they reprint that? Was it in one of the other sets that's also rotating?
It's Fabled Passage will no longer be standard legal, but if you say historic cards, that's reasonable.
Okay, so Fabled Passage is always a good time.
You troll. You troll. But to be fair, mine was also a land, and it's the reason that we don't need the book ban anymore. Faceless Haven.
Oh, there you go. Faceless Haven.
Yeah.
Taste it.
One colorless mana. One colorless mana. You can play this in any deck. So if before your deck had no answer to Faceless Haven, now you have one.
So like they jam a couple Faceless Havens in the early turns of the game. You play a Pithing Needle, and that's that. That just lands for the rest of the game.
They tap for colorless snow mana, but they can't activate that ability so that the book puts the counter on it. Oh yeah. Lock that out.
So other notable things, this shuts down Planeswalkers, which is cool. It also shuts down creatures and artifacts with like tap abilities, basically anything that's going on except adding mana to your mana pool.
Oven?
There you go.
Teferi, Hero of Dominaria.
Sounds good to me, my friend.
Are we having fun yet? I mean, you can find uses for this card all over the place.
Oh, yeah. Well, and it's just one of those cards that it can just play so nicely with whatever game you're in, right? There's obviously going to be decks that it's not very good against, but there's also going to be decks where like you just find some random edge case which just happens to totally hose your opponent in that particular game, and they never expected. We just don't. Cards like this take us out of the normal flow of what we get used to in a format, right? Mm-hmm. So you're all of a sudden going to find yourself in a situation where you're like clicking on your card and you're like, why isn't this doing anything? And then you'll realize, oh God, it's because my opponent has a Pithing Needle.
Thinking about standard 2022, literally every deck has creature lands. It's such a huge part of the format. It makes control so hard to play. Do you think it's worth a lot of decks like running a Pithing Needle or two just because there's always a creature land you can name?
I mean, I think it's worth considering,
Okay.
It's so hard, right? Because, so in formats like Modern or Historic, people getting to do the thing with the permanent is often so powerful. It's like often the difference between them winning versus losing. In Standard, not necessarily, right? So I don't actually know how good it's going to be to, in your average Standard deck, just dedicate an entire card to shutting down your opponent's creature land, especially since they might be running multiple colors. Then you're going to get a little embarrassed by it, right? So it has a lot of limitations. At the same time, again, one of the cool things about this card is that it can scale with the state of the game. So if your opponent does have like, multiple Faceless Havens or multiple of some of these cheaper creature lands that they might actually be, getting to activate more than one of them in a turn, stuff like that, then it can actually do a really good job of shutting them down. So it's both a pro and a con, I would say.
Yeah, Pithing Needle's sweet. It's a good card.
Pithing Needle is a cool card. All right, CGB, I'll let you grab the next one here.
Haven't seen this one. We're taking a shot in the dark on this one. This is Curse of Silence. It's 1 white for an enchantment or a curse. First of all, curses are back. It's a rare, and it says enchant player, as the curses, to my knowledge, all say enchant player. And as Curse of Silence enters the battlefield, choose a card name. Spells with the chosen name enchanted player cast cost 2 more to cast. And whenever enchanted player casts a spell with the chosen name, you may sacrifice Curse of Silence. If you do, draw a card.
It's a weird card, man.
You still control it, right? So it's your card, right? So if I cast it on my opponent, and I know that this won't be legal, or I'll just name a card that will be legal in the future. If I cast it on my opponent and I name Alrund's Epiphany, and they get their 9 mana together, and they cast their Alrund's Epiphany, I can, if I want to, sacrifice it and draw a card?
Yes, that's correct.
That's what I thought.
It looks like you enchant your opponent, and then they have to pay more mana, and then you get to sack it if they do the spell, and you get to draw the card. But note that they will have already still had to pay that cost.
Yeah,
right?
They had to pay the extra 2, but they did get the spell. They just had to pay a lot for it. It is on the stack. It's going to resolve. Like, unless you counter it. I guess you could counter it.
I mean, okay, so this does have a little bit of that Spellbinder going on, right? This is Spellbinder on a stick in a sense.
Yeah.
And except that you don't get to look at their hand. No. So it's so interesting because it's super efficient, and it is a good way to just put your opponent off of whatever you're worried about, right? Like,
it's a tilt factory, dude. You can,
sure.
Imagine if like you can just play this on turn 1 and name Jespera Sentinel, and the opponent looks at their hand and like, if you're good, the soul read on the 1-drop, you just get them.
Dude, think about it's going to happen in the best of 1 queue where someone on the play they haven't even seen you make a land drop yet. They're going to name your 1-drop. And you're just going to rage scoop. Right?
Of course, they'll do it to me. They'll know exactly what I'm playing because I'm predictable.
It's a good thing the companion's aren't around anymore.
I was going to make that point. If you just name the companion after they pay the 3 mana for it, it's brutal.
Brutal. Super brutal. Yeah, so I don't know. This card's super weird to me. My impulse is to tell you not to craft it or play with it, crafties, but who knows? This could end up being a really interesting card in the meta.
I think it requires a very, there is a clear deck to beat with a clear play pattern to beat, or you're running a deck that we can beat everything but this one thing. Like, if your mono white and a Doomscar deck is super popular, because maybe some YouTuber made a video with it yesterday, and you want to beat that Doomscar deck, maybe this is a card that you just go to for a period of time when you feel like you can really predict the meta because you can beat everything else. I don't know, but it is a card I would avoid at first, but could see some play. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's super interesting, and we'll see how it plays out. Okay, I'm going to scroll down here a little bit. Might be missing some important cards, but you can't win them all, right? And CGB, if I skip something that you're interested in, just take us back there and let's do it.
Okay.
So a card that caught my eye, which I think could end up being a player in some of these werewolf decks, is Kessig Naturalist. So this is an uncommon. It is costs green and a red for a 2/2. It's a creature human werewolf. Whenever Kessig Naturalist attacks, add red or green to your mana pool until end of turn. You don't lose this mana as steps and phases end. And then it has Daybound. If a player casts no spells during their own turn, it becomes night next turn. Now, when it becomes night, this flips over into Lord of the Ulvenwald. It is a 3/3 creature werewolf. Other wolves and werewolves you control get +1/+1. Lord effect. Whenever Lord of the Ulvenwald attacks, add red or green. Until the end of turn, you don't lose mana as steps and phases end, and this has Nightbound. So if a player casts 2 spells on their turn, then it will flip this the next turn. Okay, so I mean, I'm just thinking about how this curves into Arlen, right? Turn 3 Arlen, and then when it flips, it make those wolves 3/3s.
Yeah,
nasty.
And Arlen herself,
nasty.
I believe, is also a wolf on that on the other side, on the night side
creature. Exactly. So yeah, there are going to be play patterns where like this curves out and just obliterates you.
This card, first of all, it's a 2-mana 2/2, and that's okay now.
Oh, it's so okay.
Bone Crusher is gone at this point. It still hasn't been announced as a reprint in the set. Holding your breath on that one.
I mean, this card's practically unkillable. You know, who's going to want to spend an entire card to kill it?
No one. It might live. There's a good chance it lives. This card is sweet, right?
Oh, heck yeah.
Heck yeah. It's a Lord effect. It's literally called Lord of the Ulvenwald. So it's a Lord called a Lord. That's nice. It only works on the night side, so at some point you have to pass without making a play, or somebody does, which is interesting. But one thing that we learned about these wolves in the past is that when you play a cheap one, like Kessig Naturalist, when you play this on like turn 1, there's a chance the opponent just doesn't have a play the next turn.
Yeah.
Like they just go tap land, and you flip for basically free. And against control, it's actually pretty common for that to happen because they wanted to hold mana up to do something on your turn instead. So it's not like when you get a cheap enough daybound card, it's not unrealistic to untap with it on turn 3 on the night side.
Yep, exactly. So I think that there's going to be like some pretty devastating play patterns with this. Like, let's say you play this on 2, you swing with it on 3, you get out your Arlen, you make some wolves, right? On your next turn, if you're still daybound, you can plus this and leave up your flashy. I mean, you can plus Arlen, right? Leave up your flashy mana. And then if your opponent doesn't manage to, I mean, so let's see. So it would be daytime, right?
Yes.
And then if your opponent might like want to keep it on day, right? Because they don't want to get hosed by you on the following turn. But then you could even on the following turn. I'm trying to think about how this would work. Basically, there's a scenario in which you're able to play 2 spells and flip all of your wolves over and then like crush your opponent, right? With the board state that you've created.
You wanna be on the night side, right? To have your wolves powerful. So you want to cast no spells. You want a turn of pass.
That's right. Okay. Yeah. So if your opponent doesn't play 2 spells, then your stuff flips. Is that right?
If the opponent plays 2 spells, we flip off night into day.
Yeah. But if they don't play any spells, then it transforms from day to night. Right. And so now you're threatening to attack with your Arlen Planeswalker and your Wolves and your Kessig Naturalist if it's still alive, and they all have +1/+1. Right?
And this makes and you get some mana just because.
Yep, exactly. So anyway, it's a bit convoluted in my mind. We're going to have to see the actual play patterns, right? But this is what I'm imagining. I think they're setting us up for these like explosive turns where like all of your stuff flips and all of a sudden your entire team is pumped, especially if you have multiple naturalists.
Yeah.
Now you're just swinging in with the team. It's going to be pretty gnarly.
If you watch the lore video, there's like the lore centers around this Harvesttide festival, but it looks like the werewolves are going to crash the party. That I think is going to actually get represented on board states where it's like, here's a little wolf, here's a wolf, and boom, there's a whole bunch of huge werewolves.
Oh my God. And that's what I'm. Oh yeah. Audio crafties, you got to tune in to see CGB's werewolf face. He's really playing the part, man. Now all you need is some mutton chops, CGB.
I don't know what those are. I mean, I'm American over here, okay? Just keep
The
the
only thing
joke.
he wants to do
Keep
with
your food
mutton is
references
eat it.
American on this podcast. You want to talk barbecue? If we're not talking barbecue, I don't want to talk about it. You hear me?
Yeah, CGB needs to get some barbecue chops going on there. All right. I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this next card as well, CGB Arcane Infusion.
Arcane Infusion is a red and a blue, so 2 mana. Is it? It's an uncommon. It's an instant. And it says, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal an instant or sorcery from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom in a random order. The flashback is 3, a blue, and a red. My first thought is I played with a card called Impulse. And Impulse was 1 and a blue to look at the top 4 cards of your library and pick 1 and put it into your hand and put the rest on the bottom. And I often picked instants and sorceries because I am a blue mage. That is what we do. And it didn't have flashback. And this card does. It's a good card that only fits a very specific type of deck. You have to be pretty happy hitting instants and sorceries often. I usually am. It competes with Expressive Iteration, which is likely a 4 of. This card is probably not as overall good as Expressive Iteration, but it might be a 1 or a 2 of player in that type of deck, or in a deck with way more counter spells that doesn't want iteration. So this card is a decent role player, in my opinion, and it can get you really deep looking for all of the Alrund's Epiphanies you can possibly want to cast in a game.
Heck yeah. I agree with everything CGB said. I think this card is pretty sweet and I think it could do a fair amount of work in the format. Another card I want to mention is this Falconrath Pit Fighter. So we've been talking about some lack of aggro support in our formats, and if it just reading down through this set with the various tribes, it looks like there are some extremely aggro curves which are going to be supported with this set. So let's get into a card that could enable stuff like that. So Falconrath Pit Fighter, 1 red mana for a creature vampire warrior. It is a 2/1, so 2/1 for 1 mana. Always got to notice those cards. And then it has this ability, 1 and a red, discard a card, sacrifice a vampire. Draw 2 cards. Activate only if an opponent has lost life this turn. So I think that this effect is really sweet and quite powerful. And I think that this is going to be like light up the stage at home. That's kind of my prediction.
Yeah.
So here's a cool thing about this card, right? Some of the play patterns that you can do with this card are you want to use the effect. And what you can do is like you can attack in with a number of your small vampires. And I guess you have to do damage to actually get the effect. So you can't sack the ones that get blocked, right?
Mm-hmm, that's right.
You could circumvent that with maybe some burn or something like that. But what I like about this card is that this lets you bridge that part of the game in aggro where like you've played out a bunch of cheap threats and maybe you're running out of gas and maybe you just need to top deck like that top end card in your deck, or maybe you need to top deck a burn spell or just whatever to keep the velocity going. And I think that this card could really do it for you.
Yeah, we're getting a look at a kind of sub mechanic. It's not an official mechanic, but this spectacle-ish deal where there's these cards that work only if the opponent lost life this turn. And this is probably one of the more push ones. We haven't had like a 1 mana 2/1 in a while, unless you count Wayward Guide Beast, which I don't. I don't like Stone Raining myself with my 1-drop. Yeah, it's just kind of a terrible card. So like the rate is already better than cheap red cards have had in a while, and we've got this spectacle type ability. So what we have to remember about spectacle is we have to kind of reevaluate things that get little bits of damage to face, right? Frostbite's, it can remove a blocker, but it can't go face, so we can't activate these abilities. But then you look at things like cheap creatures with First Strike, Flying, Menace, Death Touch. Like, these are all things that usually make it so that we get in, or anything that makes you not want to block a creature. Like, these creatures will hit often, which makes the abilities better. So I think that the ability on this card on its own looks pretty bad, and that you're not going to use it much, I think is a way that you could read this. But I think that it comes together when you start combining it with other cards.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have like another vampire that's playable in your deck that just drains when it enters the battlefield or stuff like that.
I was temporarily confused when you started talking about the card because it's in another language on the site. I just want to say the creature type on my screen is creature type Vampiro Guerrero.
Right, which is Vampire Warrior.
Very cool.
Yep. I put on my translation hat here. So this card, I mean, it all depends on how the vampires deck is, obviously, but this card looks like it could be a strong player in that deck if it ends up being a deck.
It's the hope for mono red, dude. Also, the discard effect, madness is coming, right? Crimson Vow, we're doing madness, right?
Oh, I mean, it has to be. Yeah.
Why are they going so mad at a wedding, though? I thought madness would be in this set. I thought we'd have I don't know, celebrate the mechanic at a wedding,
Dude, it's the fever pitch, right? Like, the wedding is just where like the whole thing comes down. It's the tantrum. It's the freaking like running out of your wedding in your wedding dress,
Bridezilla,
screaming, right?
Okay.
Yeah,
Bridezilla madness.
That's what we're seeing. Yep, just off the chain.
Okay.
Reality TV show coming to Arena soon.
Love it.
Say
yes to the dress and to eating the guest.
Okay, I'll hand it back over to you, CGB. What's standing out to you?
Ooh, I haven't read a lot of these, so I'm just going to dive in on one. Devoted Graphkeeper is my favorite colors of all time. It's a white and a blue, 2 total mana, for a 2/1 human peasant uncommon creature. When Devoted Graphkeeper enters the battlefield, mill 2 cards. Interesting. Whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, tap target creature you don't control. Okay. It has Disturb, which is a new mechanic. So we get to talk about that. Disturb says you play this on its opposite side. Again, we have double face cards. There's plenty of those. I love reading 2 cards for every card we read. I've got to tell you. It's just the only way to do it. Anyway, Disturb says that you can cast this from your graveyard on the opposite side. So unless you have something that flips it some other way somehow, some convoluted way, mostly you don't cast this unless you're playing it on the opposite side from the graveyard. All right, the Disturb side is Departed Soul Keeper. This is a spirit. It is a 3/1. It flies. And whenever it can only block creatures with flying. So it's a Brazen Borrower. If Departed Soul Keeper would be put into a graveyard from anywhere, exile it. Okay.
So let me get this straight. So you cast it face up for its blue-white cost. It's 2/1. It dies. It goes to your graveyard. And then just, during any of your main phases, you can cast the Disturb cost and just get it back on the backside, right?
Right. And it enters on the backside. So you don't get that ability of whenever you cast a spell from your graveyard, tap target creature you don't control. That only happens when you cast that. Yeah, you don't get that side of it.
Yeah.
Unless it's still on the battlefield, but you don't get it from recasting it.
Value creature. It kind of seems pretty sweet, especially if you're in the market for the mill. One of my main questions with this card is blue-white going to be a graveyard deck?
It looks like it from this card.
I mean, that's setting us up for it, right?
Yeah, definitely a setup, because usually when you have a signpost card like this in limited, it's really trying to drive your archetype. It's supposed to be like an important pick. And this one with the mill 2, you've got to really want that for the... So we're probably going to see a graveyard-themed blue-white guild mechanic for sure.
Which sounds really interesting to me. So, and if that ends up being good, this could be a pretty strong card. It's different than Brazen Borrower, but this card has some kind of Brazen Borrower vibes going on for me.
Yeah, you get an effect for 2 mana on the front, and then on the backside, when appropriate, you get a 3/1 flyer. If you could cast it... you cast it with the Disturb cost, so it's not an ability. You can't flash it in. Yeah, you can't.
Right, exactly.
That's too bad.
Yeah. But yeah, so this is like Brazen Borrower at home, basically.
Unless that Brazen Borrower didn't mill and it didn't create two
That's true.
bodies. Like this can
That's true.
trade off on the ground and then be a 3/1 in the air. It's interesting. And it's an
Yeah, that's a
interesting
cool
kind
card.
of glimpse at the future of blue white, I guess. And I'm not ready, man. I'm not ready to just start doing graveyard stuff. I just want to lock them
I
down.
mean, I fast forward into the future and predict that you're gonna like it, CGB.
Okay.
You're gonna like it
We'll
hard.
see.
Just like this next card, Blade Stitch Scab. So this is kind of in a similar vein, except this is the blue-black variety. Real simple. Creature, zombie, soldier. Cost a blue and a black. It's a 2/3, and other zombies you control get +1/+0. I mean, if that's not priced right for you, I don't know what is, right? I mean, this card is simple, cheap, strong, and effective.
Wait, that's it? You're done?
I know, right?
There's now
This
like
card
a flip side and 5 more abilities?
This card actually has flavor text on it, if you can believe
Oh
that.
my god, I've never heard it. Okay, so this card is sweet. It's a 2-mana Lord, right? And it has better than the typical Lord stats of a 2/3. It doesn't give a toughness boost, which can definitely hurt, but zombies, it makes sense for flavor because zombies are known for being mindlessly aggressive. Yeah. This card is cool.
What do you expect from your like 2-mana 2/3, you know? I think this is like the I'm already forgetting the name of it, right? The rogue dude that buffs your team.
Mm-hmm. The rogue dude who buffs your team. The rogue dude who buffs your team.
The flash rogue who buffs your team, the 1/3.
There's a 1/3 flash rogue that buffs your team. I'm kidding. I'm messing with you. It's Soaring Thought Thief.
Soaring Thought Thief. That's the one. So you had me going there for a moment. I was like, man, yeah, CGB's he's just been out of standards so long. I mean, I never remember card names. When CGB doesn't remember a card name, you know there's something wrong. Mm-hmm. So yeah, this definitely has the Soaring Thought Thief vibe to me, and it could end up being as groan inducing if the zombies deck ends up being good.
If it had flash. There is a sweet curve. Do you remember? Because we talked about the card when it was previewed. Do you remember what Champion of the Perished does?
Champion of the Perished. Yes.
Yeah.
So this is what every time a zombie enters the battlefield under your control, it gets +1/+1.
It's a 1-mana 1/1 that exactly that. Whenever a zombie enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1. So that's a curve right there that has your champion attacking for 3 on turn 2. And
heck yeah, dude, that's strong.
Oh,
that is strong.
It gets better with another card that we'll get to.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah. Zombies, werewolves look like they are curving out and hitting hard in this set. Yeah. It's crazy.
They look lit. All right. What's next up for you, CGB?
I was trying to sneak ahead and look at some of these cards to see if we want to talk about them. So let's talk about Gisa, the Glorious Resurrector. I have no idea where this card is going to fall because I haven't actually finished reading it. So it is 2 and a black. So 4 total mana for a 4/4 legendary creature human wizard. It's a rare. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. At the beginning of your upkeep, put all creature cards exiled with Gisa, Glorious Resurrector, onto the battlefield under your control. They gain Decayed, which means, once again, in totally smooth Arena podcast co-host fashion, I have moved us into talking about another important keyword mechanic of the set. Decayed.
You sly dog, you.
Decayed is a new ability that is kind of a strict downgrade, but it makes sense. We might get into why. A creature with Decayed can't block, and when it attacks, sacrifice it at the end of combat. Basically, you get a one-shot thing. The flavor is like your zombie is falling apart. It's so old and rotting, and it only has one thing left to do, which is throw it at your opponent, and it won't even survive the attack. Just suicidal zombie.
Just falling apart.
Going for
guts splaying everywhere.
Yeah. What do you think of Gisa, the Glorious Resurrector? You get, whenever a creature dies with this on the battlefield, it gets exiled, and you get it.
You get it. You don't have to pay for it either. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty sweet. I mean, let's be real. If you hit with this thing, it's going to feel pretty awesome. It definitely has that 4/4 that needs to live until your next turn kind of subtext.
Yeah.
On it, right?
That's rough.
But if it does, there's a lot to like here. So, I mean, this strikes me as the kind of card that you actually don't curve out with, right? You maybe hold this until you can like actually kill something as well, so that you can kind of, you're more likely to get the value on your next turn, right? But think about this, like if your opponent doesn't have a kill spell for it, they're not going to want to attack into you, right? They're not going to want to trade with you having this on the battlefield.
They're going to hate that idea.
Yeah. And so it's actually the kind of thing where like you can drop this on for an attack with your other zombies and they basically get unblockable for the turn, which is pretty, I mean, you know, if your opponent hatches a plan to kill Gisa, of course, that's going to stymie them. But here's one of the things you have to remember too, is that, you know, let's say that this curves into, if, you know, the next turn being your opponent's Goldspan Dragon turn, right? You know, you might like throw off that curve by playing something like this and making them have to deal with it, right? I guess that's a bad example because Dragon's Fire can kill it if you have a Goldspan Dragon, but it's that kind of thing. Sometimes cards like these, if you curve them right, you can kind of disrupt what else your opponent would have been doing on the turn to have to deal with it. And so, you know, sometimes it lines up like that too.
We've also learned that really aggressive curve outs, it's not like the opponent can sit back, hold their removal just in case you have a Gisa.
It's true.
Like they have to do something about the beatdown they're receiving if you have an aggressive zombie deck. So it's not a given that they'll just have removal up their sleeve at the right time when this comes down. There's also this interesting play pattern where when you exile their thing, then you get it, but it has decayed. So if you attack with it, it goes to the graveyard. So if for some, like it was exiled originally, but now if you attack with it after it comes back with decayed, it goes back to their graveyard. Like that's kind of an odd tension in case they have things to do with their graveyard, which might be a thing. Like, because usually the exile is a better upside than you expect.
Well, and if it has this disturb ability, then you might choose to try to hang on to it so that your opponent can't cast it.
That's a great example. So, yeah. Cool.
I mean, sweet card, you know. Final thing I want to note, this card doesn't get bounced by Cyclone Summoner. So
we're on the watch out for wizards, man. We're just on the wizards watch.
Love it. Okay, here's a card I think you'll find interesting, Covert Co Blue. Dissipate. 1 blue instant at uncommon. Counter target spell. This is the cancel of this set. If that spell is countered this way, exile it instead of putting it into its owner's graveyard. So this is, it's kind of like Void Shatter, except that Void Shatter was a colorless spell. This one is a blue spell. Other than that, same effect. What do you think, Covert Co Blue?
What's funny is that Dissipate's a reprint. I think it's been reprinted 2 or 3 times. And Void Shatter was just printed 1 time in like an Eldrazi set. So I thought it was really funny that you brought up that good old Devoid card. Whereas Dissipate is like, I always think of Dissipate and Void Shatter. I like never think of anymore. It took me a minute to even be like, what?
It's just because I don't think Dissipate has been printed in standard since Void Shatter was in standard.
I think you're right.
And that's my reference point.
Yeah.
Right.
All right.
I happen to love Void Shatter. That's a spell that I formed an attachment to. So I'm happy to see this effect return.
Dissipate saw plenty of play in standard. The exile effect, especially in any kind of Innistrad set where the graveyard is often a playable thing, it mattered. It always seemed to come up here and there that you were really happy you had Dissipate. I don't think we're going to see as much of it in this standard just because Saw It Coming is going to be really hard to replace. It's really amazing how I wasn't that excited about a Saw It Coming when we had like Absorb and things like that. Or Neutralize, which cycles, you know, that's really good stuff. But this, like, when you compare Saw It Coming to like is it called Villain's Lair? You discover the Villain's Lair or just cancel. It's like that ability to foretell it so that the opponent can't take it with their elite spellbinder, or they don't know what's in the foretell zone, so they don't know if they should play around Saw It Coming or not, and the ability to save mana with it. I just don't think Dissipate's going to beat that at all, ever.
Yeah, it could be. However, this is what I've noticed, right, is that we say things like this, and then I feel like typically there's an inflection point in the format where everyone starts to switch over to the new counter spell, right? I think it happened with Saw It Coming, right? We were thinking, oh, we're probably not going to play that because we have these other spells. And so, yeah, I think at a certain point, you're going to start to see people preferring Dissipate. And then eventually it's just going to be the preferred counter spell in the format. Might not happen, but, you know.
So with Dissipate, like what would it take? It would have to take like creatures or planeswalkers, like a permanent type that can't be hit by Test of Talents that you really don't want in the graveyard, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
I mean,
we'll be on the watch for it.
Exactly. Just keep an eye out for it. This card could also be a really excellent sideboard card as well. Yep. I mean, think about like people would have brought this in against Uro, right?
Not the worst idea. Not bad.
Not the worst idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Escape cards are leaving, but yeah. If there's a new escape or a new Uro, go for it, Wizards.
You know?
We got Dissipate now. It'll be fine.
Or don't.
It'll be fine.
Or don't. Okay. The next thing I wanted to talk about here is these dual lands. CGB. We are getting allied dual lands. Are you stoked?
What I'm most stoked about is how you kind of made this like your pick, but you got 2 picks in a row, and now I have to pick again because I had an easy one with the dual lands, and you were just like, nope, I'm doing it.
I mean, it's your pick. Go for it. Talk about them.
I feel like I have to talk about the dual lands now for some reason. I can't put my finger on it. It's like, okay.
I just feel compelled to discuss them.
We got new dual lands. They are allied colors, so we're gonna have Dimir, Gruul, Selesnya, Rakdos, Deserted Beach. That's the blue-white one. I'm gonna know that one. And these are. They all have this text of enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. And I think we've all seen this in the kind of fast land cycle of enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or fewer other lands.
Yep.
And this is the opposite. This is if this is your 3rd land, 4th land, 5th land, or so on, it's untapped. If you play it on turn 1 or turn 2, it is tapped. And they all do not have the basic land types. They're just type land. And they have tap for, this allied color or this allied color, blue or black, red or green.
So are we calling these slow lands then?
I mean, look, man, I coach roller derby. You never call a player slow. It's just mean. All right. You're just typing them forever. And then they can never get out of that shell. So what's a good way we can say it in a nice way? Like, because these could still have great potential. We don't want to label them poorly. All right.
I've got it. All right. You're going on your next cruise. Okay. You're gonna get on your cruise ship, and it's gonna sail off into the distance. And you know where it's going to go, CGB? It's going to go to a leisure land. It's it's the new and improved vacation. Shipwreck Marsh, the most leisurely cruise you've ever taken in your life. Untapped, turn 3 onwards. What do you think?
You're calling them cruiser lands?
Leisure lands.
Leisure lands.
Yeah.
I like chill lands.
Chill lands? Okay.
Leisure lands is pretty good. Leisure lands, I like that too.
You just put a marketing spin on it, right?
Yeah, man. Shipwreck Marsh and chill, dude. Well, we don't need this aggro. We don't need this attacking people on turns 1 and on turn 2. We don't need that.
We're casting sweepers and planeswalkers and expensive card draw spells. That's what we're doing.
Yeah, you can tell by our banter around these that they are better in slow decks, but I don't think these are good, right? These are going to be played in the kind of decks that you want these in. You have the pathways for earlier. You have snarls for earlier, although that's going to be rough, right, to fit in with this kind of thing. I don't know. I think they'll see a ton of play because the dual lands in the set often do, unless they absolutely suck. So,
I mean, okay, so on balance, better or worse than the snarls?
I think the snarls are actually good, and I think a big problem is that they're printed alongside pathways and now these. If these had types, or if pathways had types, snarls would be A+. They'd be A-listers. Yes. And you can play them in historic because you've got shock lands. But
we currently have the only lands in standard at the moment which which help your snarls, are like the tapped snow duels, right?
Yeah, horrible.
Yeah,
Horrible.
but the rest of our duels don't. So
Correct.
that's kind of a bummer. Yeah, you're right. This does incentivize us away from snarls. However, also in different colors. So that's something to think about as well. Um, I think it's, I mean, I do think it's interesting how these are, some of these anyway are slower colors, right? We've got blue, white, we've got blue, black. Those tend to be slower. I mean, we do have some faster ones. Selesnya, Gruul, Rakdos is sometimes faster. But one of the things that I do like about these is that I think they play well with the creature lands, right? So the creature lands come down untapped in the first 2 turns of the game, and these come down untapped in the following turns of the game. Now, if you draw them in the wrong order, that's going to suck. They're all going to come out untapped. But I think if you build your mana bases right, it's going to work out most of the time.
Yeah, I like that point about the new creature lands from Forgotten Realms, that you can play those early and then play these after. I don't think that these are, they're not helpful when you want to curve out with, like, say, a red 1-drop and on turn 2 play Werewolf Pack Leader, like a Stomping Ground would. But it is kind of nice that you can play opposite, like, 3-color cards. I'm trying to think of 2 that I can name here, but for example, you can play Kazandu Mammoth and Skyclave Apparition in your green-white deck, and there is a chance you will have the option of casting either one on turn 3, whereas before that was just so unlikely.
Well, no, you're right. That does make a good point, that these lands make 3-drops in particular better. Because the later the game goes, the more likely you are to have figured out your mana anyway. But yeah, that 3-drop inflection is going to be big, I think.
Yep, I'm into them.
I also, okay, so here's another thing I like, okay, is that in a set with some what's looking to be pretty pushed aggro archetypes, I like that they're not also giving us fast lands.
Yeah.
So, like, for example, Gruul's looking like it's going to be a really aggressive archetype, and I'm glad that, Gruul might actually have an awkward time of it in the early turns of the game, because if they didn't, I think it would just be a stomping.
I agree, especially with the curve that Gruul looks like it might be able to pull off. It's kind of insane.
Yeah,
kind of insane.
Totally. So those are looking pretty sweet. Okay, we actually are almost towards the end of our time here. So and there's a lot,
so many cards.
There's a lot to look at here. So there's just a couple more that I wanted to highlight. One of them is a reprint, Thermo Alchemist. This card, it's seen various play in various different formats. I'm trying to remember, was this card ever like an actual player in the previous standard that it showed up in?
There was a Thermo Alchemist deck for a minute, yeah. I think a few people at a Pro Tour played it once.
Yeah. So if we get enough good support for this card, this might be one of those cards where, like, it's not playable in this set when it comes out, but like with some additional burn, all we need is like an additional lightning strike or like a little bit more face burn, a little bit more Izzet support, and all of a sudden Thermo Alchemist starts to pop off. And Crafties, if you've never played against a Thermo Alchemist deck before, like if you haven't played Historic and you haven't run into any there, these cards can end up dealing an absolutely insane amount of damage to you over the course of the game. They deal 1 damage to you at minimum. Oftentimes, if your opponent is pointing burn at your face, they can deal like 2 or even 3 to you a turn. Of course, that stacks with multiple Thermo Alchemists. I guess I haven't even read the card yet, so why don't I do that? So Thermo Alchemist is 1 and a red, creature, human, shaman, defender, 0/3. It taps to deal 1 damage to each opponent. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, untap Thermo Alchemist. So yeah, this common play pattern is something like you play a Thermo Alchemist, on the next turn, maybe you play another Thermo Alchemist, you ping your opponent, and then on the following turn, you just cast like a cascade of burn spells, and each one is dealing like 2 damage to your opponent off of the Thermo Alchemist, and then you're untapping it and dealing more damage, and it can end the game very quickly.
It's annoying. It triggers so like many triggers, dude. It triggers off every like instant or sorcery you cast. Oh, this card drives me crazy. Yeah, but it's good.
It's good. So it could show up. I just realized that CGB's long overdue for reading his next card. So why don't we?
Got me.
What? why don't we let CGB pick? 1 or a handful of the last cards that we read here before we go out.
All right, I'm gonna read Tovalar. Tovalar. the Dire Overlord. This is a double-sided card, so I'm getting my money's worth, okay? And it is 1 and a red-green for a legendary creature, human werewolf at rare. It is a 3/3. 3/3 for 3. And whenever a wolf or werewolf you control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Because why not?
Oh boy. Dude,
Hold on.
Gruul getting card draw?
Hold on. We got a long way to go. Hold on. All right. At the beginning of your upkeep, if you control 3 or more wolves or werewolves, it becomes night. Okay. Then transform any number of werewolves you control.
So transform just means you can flip them from one side to the other, whichever side they're not on. Right?
I think when it says it becomes night, therefore I think it has to go to the night side. I don't think you can be a daybound creature on the night side.
I see. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, kind of. I also thought that for a minute when I read it. All right. The flip side is the Midnight Scourge, and it says whenever a wolf or werewolf you control damage, draw a card. That's the same. But this is the part I love. It has X red green. Target werewolf or wolf you control gets +X+O and gains trample until end of turn. This is a callback to a card Kessig Wolf Run, which was a huge part of the format back in the day with that Innistrad set, which was a land that did this effect. But yeah, you basically can pump a ton of mana with this thing and just buff a wolf to infinity. And so I'm excited about this card. The curve of this if you go turn 2 Werewolf Pack Leader, currently, just tearing up Standard, Historic, and Standard 2022. What a card. Turn 2 Werewolf Pack Leader. Turn 3 this.
Oh, I don't like where you're going with this.
Turn 4 Arlen, make 2 wolves. You already have enough wolves to, if you want to, at the beginning of your upkeep, and since it's just an ability on the card, you can make it night, like on your turn whenever you want to, as long as you have 3 wolves and one of them's this card, right? So you get to choose your day-night side without having to worry about the spell requirements. Then you also have, whenever you deal combat damage to a player, you draw a card. The Midnight Scourge side gives trample. It just hands out trample, and you can pump mana into it. It's a mana sink, so if you want to cast no spells to flip that way, you can, if you didn't do it with the 3 wolf requirement. And with Arlen, you make the 2 wolves, and the pack leader is triggering because it's a 3/3 and a 3/3 on the attack.
I know.
And it's so much card draw, dude. It's so much power and toughness. It's
why
crazy.
Why does Gruul get to do this?
It's so much, dude.
Why? I don't understand.
Yeah.
It's you
nuts.
Get a card draw. You get a card draw.
Yeah.
Embercleave has draw a card on it. All right. Fun. Good times.
Yeah. It's a brutally aggressive set of cards that we already know about with a lot of preview season to go in a red-green werewolf deck. And it draws cards while doing it.
Yeah.
It's
brutal. And think about like each of these werewolf creatures that we've described is a must kill, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just like the 2/2 that attacks, makes mana, and flips to buff the team. You can't just let that thing hang out. Like that's a terrible idea.
Yep.
Same with the pack leader, man. Like that thing's a must kill. Like, you can't just have them like drawing cards whenever they attack. So, I mean, it's kind of feeling like a nightmare.
We haven't even mentioned Ranger class, which makes a wolf token and provides mana sinks for the turns when you want to flip into night.
Oh God.
Dude.
It's yeah, man. I'll tell you what, Ali Eldrazi's stream is going to be blown up. So, get ready for that, crafties.
You're gonna love it.
All right. Any final card you want to go out on?
Yeah, I want to go out on Jadar Ghoul Caller of Nephalia because I alluded to it before. And this is only a one-sided card, so we'll try to make it quick. All right, this is a 1 and a black for a 1/1. It's a rare, so 2 mana 1/1 rare. Human Wizard. It's a legend, so go Commander. Woo! And it says, at the beginning of your end step, if you control no creatures with Decayed, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token with Decayed. So for 2 mana, you get a 1/1, and on your end step, I assume you'll also get a 2/2. Now, when the 2/2 attacks, you'll have to sacrifice at the end of combat, but you also get, like, you just get another one if this card is still on the board. And I love it because with Champion of the Perished, you get the 1/1, and then you play this, and then on the end step, you get a 2/2, and then that triggers the 1/1, so it becomes like a 2/2, and then your Champion of the Perished keeps growing every turn as long as you keep attacking with the Decayed Zombie, right? Because you just keep making another one every end step, and it just keeps the champion getting bigger and bigger. And we talked about the Dimir Zombie Lord, who buffs all the zombies, and we already have like a ton of kind of reliable value. This is like Dreadhorde Invasion, but I think it's better because it's on a body that can attack and block itself, right?
Yeah, and I mean, so you know, if you play this on turn 2, you're getting 3/3 worth of stats across 2 bodies. Now, granted, you know, they can't all block, and there are some other drawbacks, but you're right. Like, this also has like dying and entering the battlefield triggers and all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think you're getting a lot for your money with this card.
You can sacrifice your 2/2 to Village Rites and Deadly Dispute, and then make another one like for free. That's not bad.
Yep, exactly. Yeah, and the whole time you're buffing your Champion of the Parish and whatever else, right? Whatever else is happening.
You got Shambling Ghast hanging out. Like, we got some zombies happening, man. We got some zombies.
Yeah. So I mean, this card also looks really strong to me. Note that it is legendary. Also note that even if it wasn't legendary, they wouldn't play nicely with other copies. So it kind of, you know, works out that way. So we'll be interested to see how many of these end up going in your deck. But if the zombie deck is a thing, I have to imagine this is going to be in it.
Yeah, I think so too. So cool. we talked about a bunch of cool cards. The tribal stuff, the aggro tribal, like the zombies and the wolves, looks really nasty. And vampires have potential. It'll probably get really good with Crimson Vow, but we've got a red 1-drop in vampires that's playable, gives mono red hope. And the lands favor control. So, I mean, it's a lot of good stuff. I know that there's a lot of things we haven't talked about. Let me know in the YouTube comments or go to the Discord and let us know if your favorite card didn't get talked about. If there's an overwhelming one that we missed, we can maybe hit it next week.
Yep, that sounds great. And so, yeah, Crafties, we're going to be doing more in-depth talks about the spoilers and, of course, our eventual trademark set review. So keep an eye out. That's going to be coming up. But yeah, in the meantime, I'm really excited to just see what all these cards end up looking like. I love the plane of Innistrad. There's a special place in my heart for the last series, Shadows. And then what was the follow-up one? Eldritch Moon.
You got it.
Yep. So those 2 sets were really in full bloom when I came back to Magic, and I had some very fond memories of playing those formats. So hopefully this will live up to that and also give us some new stuff to look at. And with that, we will bid adieu to another episode of the Arena Craft podcast. And you can find us in most of the places that you would want to find your podcast. We are on Spotify. You can download us in pretty much any app of your choice. You can also watch this on Covert Go Blue's channel and see all of his amusing facial expressions, which happen about couple times a minute. You get to see him work his theater school chops here. It's happening right now. And you can also go and watch Covert Go Blue stream, twitch.tv/Covert Go Blue. You can watch me stream as well, twitch.tv/ArenaCraft Podcast. And yeah, Covert Go Blue. I will look forward to getting down night and day with you next week.
Later, Crafties.
I feel like every time I turn my back on my audio, it's fritzing. So.
Oh.